From Trimble Construction, you're listening to the Connected Construction Show, where we connect you to the contractors, owners, designers, engineers, and construction professionals who are finding better ways to work. And now, here's your host, Matt Sprauge.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Connected Construction Show. I am your host, Matt Sprauge. We are here at the Dimensions 2022 in Las Vegas at the Venetian Resort. And I am joined today by Jared Redelman from Bowen Engineering. I got that Bowen Engineering, right? Not construction. I was like, oh, goodness gracious. It's been a long day. Yeah. So Jared, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So audience wants to know, I want to know, tell us a little bit more about you, your background,
Sure.
How you came to be in the position you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I went to Purdue University, majored in construction management there. I came out, I graduated in 2007, and been working for Bowen ever since. So I started out in a field role, kind of a project engineer, field engineer. Worked in that role for about 6 years. A lot of boots on the ground, on site every day, all day. It was a lot of fun, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then kind of transitioned into a project controls role. And helped kind of grow our project controls department. And then about 5-6 years ago, our department kind of branched out and started becoming our internal innovation technology VDC department as well. So now we have kind of stood that up as well. And so now we're kind of a multifunction role as a group and do a lot with technology and a lot still with scheduling and P6 and project controls.
That's awesome. Now, is there any specific type of projects you guys specialize in?
Yeah, good question. So Bowen Engineering, name of the company. We're not an engineering firm. A lot of people often confuse that. Like, oh, you guys, what do you design? We don't design. We're a general contractor.
You make trains?
That's right. Yeah. So we are a general contractor. We self-perform about 80% of the work we do. So we're mainly working in the heavy industrial municipal space. A lot of water plants, wastewater plants, and power plants.
Awesome.
Is the majority of our work.
Okay. Geography?
Based out of Indianapolis, Indiana, headquartered.
Yep.
And then we have 6 other offices, satellite offices from Kansas City out east to Baltimore, Maryland, and kind of everywhere in between.
Gotcha. So my understanding, Bowen's been on this like mixed reality journey.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So kind of tell our story. We purchased our first XR10 HoloLens in 2020. So COVID, everybody loved COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
That hit in 2020, and us, like a lot of other businesses, it changed kind of what we did for the next year or two.
Yep.
And, all the conferences, places like Dimensions, got canceled and shut down. So we had just kind of some budget money set aside that was allocated for things that we quite honestly just couldn't attend.
Yep.
And so we had our eye on the XR10 and HoloLens technology for a few years and really didn't see that true application or what we would really do with it. And I just decided, like, we got some extra money in a budget. Let's just truly buy one. And I hate to use the word play around with it, but that was our motto. We had no motive. We had no agenda.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just see what we can do with this. And that's what we did. And it's been a great success for us. And we use, we're up to 4 of them today. So in 2 years, we've increased from 1 to 4. And we've got some that are on job sites full time. And then we have a couple that kind of float between some offices that we go out to projects for one-day use and do some reviews. And they've been great.
Yeah. So what type of application do you use them on? What are the problems that you're solving with it?
So we do a lot of work.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We're making an assumption that everybody knows what the heck the XR10 is.
Fair enough.
Why don't we start there?
Glad you brought it up. So XR10, the Microsoft HoloLens has been out for a while. There was the first version of HoloLens. I couldn't tell you when it was released. HoloLens 2 is the current version. I think it was released in maybe 2018 or so. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
So Trimble kind of partnered with Microsoft and said, hey, we like this technology. We see the value to the construction engineering industry. Let's take your HoloLens technology and we're going to fit it onto a hard hat.
Yeah.
And so you can use this HoloLens technology in a hard hat out in the field. And it basically projects your 3D model, your BIM, into the space. So think a hologram that kind of floats out in front of you, and you can visualize in full scale your project, your model in the space that you're going to build it in.
Yeah, absolutely. I too, during the pandemic, right before the pandemic, we were like, hey, we need to learn how we can demonstrate the XR10 with our project management software, and like where it would be good there. So I actually had one, and it was the same thing. And so I was in the house playing around with it and whatnot. And again, I was taking a model and showing how you could basically take the model, place it on a table, move it around.
Yeah.
But then you could put it to scale in the room. And I think the model I had was like of a bathroom or something or something like that.
Yeah,
but it was great to see the detail, right?
Yeah,
and it's about where the faucet is in relation to things. And I've heard use cases with like hospitals is that they would actually bring the hospital staff to a warehouse, huge place, and they would put the full, maybe not the full hospital, but the floor of the entire hospital, and allow them to walk around. And they were it was something as simple as, if I remember correctly, the placement of the ice machine to wherever the rooms were. The nurses were like, I'm gonna like run a marathon every day. They're like, this can't be done. And so you got the feedback from the people that the asset was being built for, which was really neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So so I think I started to interrupt you in terms of the applications of that.
Yeah, so we, just by the nature of the work that we do, most of our work is inside an existing facility of some capacity. I mentioned a lot of power plants and water and wastewater plants. We certainly do new construction, more on the water and wastewater side, but there's not a whole lot of brand new power plants being built.
Yep.
So the work that we do in there is always kind of retrofit. We're adding or changing technology inside plants. And so that's I think why, part of the reason why we've seen a lot of success with it, because it really helps us to identify constructability issues and clash detection, with those models in those spaces. And we can see where, pipe we have to run is conflicting with steel or other pipe or cable tray or, whatever the issue is. We have also used it in new construction, specifically in a maintenance garage that we constructed a couple of years ago, that we were able to identify just an issue between a clash and a steel and some ductwork that really helps. So it's, I say that only because a lot of your listeners probably are in that commercial vertical construction world that so much of the construction industry focuses on. And I've talked to a lot of those guys, and they're like, we don't see the application. And I still feel like just doing, regular, I don't care if it's weekly, it doesn't need to be daily in my opinion, but regular, weekly, every other week, monthly walks with your model and just QA/QC check the work that's going in place, because not everything goes in like a model shows it. And we all know that. And so there's certainly application to catch that and correct it.
Yeah, and the as-builts aren't updated as much as maybe are needed. And you can put it on. And so, if the scan's done correctly, then you can do your clash detection. Right. But sometimes there's gaps in times in between, and sometimes they'll be put them on, and like you said, they'll find like duct work and some steel work. You're like, whoa, wait a minute, where did that come from? That wasn't part of the wasn't supposed to be there.
And it's helped us catch stuff that scanning doesn't. And we our typical workflow kind of is a company where we use this technology. We'll go out and laser scan a job first.
Yep.
And then we will go and route and detail our pipe within the point cloud data. So we kind of have that check already.
Yep.
And then we just take the next step and we put it in the HoloLens. We put our model in the HoloLens, and we go up to the site and we let our foreman and our superintendent and owners, our clients and engineering partners, we just get some other involvement and just walk the job, because that brings a whole nother perspective that you never get with model reviews on, computer screens and Teams meetings. And it's just, we've caught so many things that we would never catch in a model review that we traditionally would do.
Yeah. So what are some of the benefits for the different stakeholders?
So I've got, plenty of stories I can share with you and talk about, but mainly one example, one of the first use cases we did with one of our clients. We were putting in a belt press, which is a large piece of equipment at a wastewater treatment plant. And they were putting it in an existing room, and they were concerned about the size of that piece of equipment in the space it was going to sit. So they were worried about being able to access different sides of it and walk around it and just continue their daily operations that they have to have with this new piece of equipment. And we said, well, we can kind of talk through that with you, and told them about the XR10 and the technology. And so we set up a design review meeting on site, really to focus on that issue. Like, what is this going to look like when it's here and we have to live with it?
Yeah.
And, we did that, and we had probably 8 to 10 of our owner representatives, from plant operators to their engineering staff and different stakeholders in the project show up. And we had 2 XR10s on site and just kind of shared them amongst parties and passed it around. And everybody checked. The initial concern was that piece of equipment in this space. And yeah, that's good. We like it. There's no real concerns. It gave them that comfort level.
Yeah.
But there was a valve placement and some piping that was feeding this belt press.
Yeah.
It was up kind of on a platform, and the owner, our client, it was a design build job. In a design review meeting, they very specifically told us there's a valve that they have to manipulate, turn on and off in that pipe run.
Yep.
And they said, we want that valve at chest level so it's easy to access. It's right here, and we can easily get to it.
Yep.
And so, per their request, that's what we did. And it was in a model that way. They had seen it. They were like, yeah, that's where we want it. We like it. With the XR10, it was that point they realized. They walked up on this platform, and that pipe run where that valve is was really in the way. It was very, very inconvenient.
Interesting.
And so, to the point you had to turn your body. Again, you're looking at holograms, so you don't, but your mind still tells you, I have to get around this.
Yeah.
And so you turn your body, and you were kind of shimmying along this pipe, and everybody agreed, like, this is not the right solution. We need to figure something else out. And, this is at a 60% design review. So early on in the job, nothing's been fabricated.
Yeah.
Nothing's been really approved or anything. And so it was a simple fix. We elevated that run of pipe, so where it's above your head.
Yep.
And put a chain fall actuator on the valve.
Yep.
And it was good. It's installed that way today, and they're happy with it.
Oh,
But
that's brilliant.
that's just one application where we were able to provide that value to our client, where before we would have installed it and it would have been done in the field. And then at that point, the plant operator would have showed up and was like, why is this here? I don't like it. And then that's a lot harder conversation.
Yeah. Or a more expensive one.
Well, that's why it's harder. Because, we don't want the owner to have to pay more to get what they want. It's those kind of issues.
Yeah.
We can provide what they want and need up front.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. What other case studies? What other stories do you have?
So I'll share the one I kind of briefly mentioned about the new construction again, because I think that's practical for a lot of your audience. In a new construction, we had a maintenance garage for a municipality in Indiana that they were going to store, their city trucks. There were salt trucks and plows and street sweepers and whatever trucks that they had. It was both a storage garage and a maintenance garage, and they had quite a bit of office space in this building. And so the whole structure in itself was a large pre-engineered metal building that we got from a fabricator, and they had a model, and then we had some design review coordination, BIM coordination with our work as well as our subcontractors, including HVAC.
Yep.
We had some fire protection, plumbing, 5 or 6 parties involved, and we had weekly BIM coordination meetings up front early on in the job. And it was a very successful process, and we did the typical BIM coordination issues that every job goes through and resolves all the issues early on. And we got the HoloLens once construction started, and we walked the job a few times, just, again, kind of a QA/QC check. Let's see where stuff is landing and what does it look like. And we come to find out after the building shell had been erected and the building was complete and we were working on a lot of the interior stuff, we discovered that they had some ductwork, HVAC ductwork, that dropped along some exterior walls right next to some structural steel columns.
Yep.
And in these metal buildings, the structural steel columns have some angled supports that tie from the columns back out to the exterior shell, somewhat on a 45-degree angle.
Okay.
What we discovered is that the model we received from our pre-engineered metal building manufacturer was not, it was fabricated different than the model. And those angled supports that went from the steel columns out to that siding were a little bit of a wider angle, so they stuck out farther.
Yep.
And our ductwork by design was hugging those as close as they could to get it, to get it the spacing as far apart as they could get that ductwork. And so the drops on that duct, they were clashing, running through those angled supports as they kicked out a little bit further than what the model showed. Fortunately, ductwork had not been fabricated yet. Nothing had kind of started. So we immediately got our HVAC subcontractor involved, kind of explained to them the issue. You're able to document and record pictures and video through the HoloLens. So that's worked great for a lot of applications and trying to work with engineers and explain the issues. You can take pictures and video through the HoloLens and help tell that story.
It's been a while since can you broadcast it? Like, so does Microsoft Teams have a plug?
So we use Trimble Connect software.
Yeah.
Is what we use in the HoloLens to view the models, and there is some streaming capabilities built into the software. We, as an organization, just by the nature of the work that we do, most all of our job sites have very, very poor connectivity. Because we're out in the middle of nowhere a lot of times. So we don't. Locally. Yeah, we record locally and then really transfer that to a computer and be able to share it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, that is also a positive to some of your listeners, because there's really even more capability that exists that we're not even using it for because of some of those just geographical.
Yeah, it's a limitation in terms of the broadband and cellular connectivity and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I know that because there's the ability. So just so everybody understands, there's the ability. So for me to be wearing the XR10, having the model up, looking at it, recording what I am seeing, and being able to show it back in the office.
Yeah.
So I might not have the expertise to know what I'm looking at.
Right.
But you can literally have somebody out there be like, hey, buddy, look left. And I look up.
Yeah. Touch this or do this.
Exactly. So I've heard a bunch of stories like the one you just said, where it's like they were able to recognize a clash before prefabrication happened. Is that so? Are the walkthroughs scheduled purposefully, like that? It's like, all right, this stuff's about to get made. Can someone go make sure this happens now, or is it just luck?
It's some of both, to be honest. Yeah. As we've kind of gotten further into this adoption, we have some jobs that the design build jobs that we've kind of said, hey, we're always going to do this site walk with the XR10 at a 30%, 60%, and 90% design reviews. Those are kind of standard placeholders that all of our design build jobs have, and there's always a review process at that point, and we've just kind of standardized that and said we're going to go do this on these jobs at these points, and not a real agenda, but just, hey, see where we're at, and do we like it, do we not, are we on the right track, and and go from there. So outside of that, on the jobs where we're routing piping or doing some pipe detailing and fabrication, we will typically go walk the job once we have our internal kind of pipe routing done and complete. Kind of explained that a little bit before with the laser scan. And so that's kind of another hold point we internally have. We'll go out to a site and walk it once our pipe design is done for the process piping that we put in. Outside of that, we get a lot of calls from sites that just like, hey, I kind of can't figure this out. Can you come down here and check it out and let us review it? Yeah. There's certainly some of that as well.
Gotcha. I feel like I already know the title of this episode. It's going to be Mixed Reality Story Time with Jared.
That's right.
So what other stories, what other case studies can you share?
So we got a current job happening right now in Kentucky. It's at a power plant in Kentucky, and it's a design build project, and we're in a joint venture with our engineering partner. And we're doing weekly. Our engineering partner is releasing weekly model updates. So we go through changes one week, and they'll revise the model on their end, push out a next model early the next week, and then we have scheduled weekly site walks with. It started out between us as a contractor and then our joint venture engineering partner, just for our own internal use and just kind of looking at the changes and do we like it, do we not, what else can we do to help us build it. And so we started doing that, and then our owner kind of started catching on, like, what are you guys doing? And so now we're to the point like they're engaged and interested, and so they're partaking in a lot of those walks, which we're totally open to it. again, it's helpful to the project. It's, we look at it as helpful to us or them, but it's just it's a project effort, and everybody's got to be involved and engaged. So it's been great, and they have then in turn wanted to go look at something else, in their plant that might be somewhat unrelated to the project scope that we're doing, but we can help them with those efforts as well. So it's been a good process on that particular job, just kind of that owner engagement, and they see the value of it, and they're bought in, and they're coming to us and asking for it now that there's other applications they want to start using it for. It's pretty neat.
So kind of reversing back to, I think, something you said earlier on, which was, that a lot of times there's like skepticism in terms of the adoption of this, but having now utilized it since 2020, what would it be like not having this technology on the projects that you're doing now? What would be the ramifications? What outside, like obviously not catching flash, and that type of stuff?
At the end of the day, I think, that's what it is. We all have our process and ways of building the work that we build, and we would revert back to, the way we did it 3 years ago. And it's not wrong. We've done it successful for years, and we can do it. But it's just about being able to identify any issue as early as possible. That's the goal of everything. How early can we identify a problem? And it lets all the stakeholders get together and solve the problem at little to no cost. The earlier you can catch it, the lower the cost is. And so that's always the story. And so I think that's the biggest ramification, is just the dollars spent on rework in a project, either rework or design changes. And there's also just RFIs and other, just I'll call them headaches, workflows that we all have to deal with that are just reduced because of technology like this.
I also see, like, by the stories that you've shared, and the one about the hospital that I shared, is that there's ramifications of what is discovered in planning, design, construction, prefabrication, but also like you mentioned the valve and whatnot. Mm-hmm. That's in the operations and maintenance side of it. So it's not just about making design better or just making construction better. It makes the whole asset life cycle come together and be able to be visualized ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll also mention, just from an adoption process, this technology is cool. Everybody uses the cool term, and I try to shy away from that, honestly, as much as I can, because when we're dealing with any new technology, we're all in agreement it can be the coolest thing we've ever seen, but if we can't practically use it and help a process, it's not valuable. The value's not there. And as cool as this is, the value is right there with it. It's an easy technology for us anyway, for the adoption process, because whoever puts that hard hat on and visualizes what they see, it's like the value is immediately there. And it's like nobody puts it on and just takes it right back off. Like, I don't like this. So they want to see more, and they want to do more with it. And it's been cool.
Yeah. And I think that's where we're probably just scratching the surface of like what can be done with it. And the more people that you say, kind of shied away from saying play with it. No, the more people that play with it, the more they're going to have ideas. And on the Connected Construction Show, we talk about this a lot, that it's like manufacturers of software or hardware can create these things, but it's really the customers that are putting themselves out there and testing them and being the beta users or the early adopters are the ones that really help drive where the next level of innovation comes, because they'll you all are in the field and you'll be like, oh, wait a minute, it can be used in this other way.
Right.
That, oh my God, blows our mind. Right.
Right. Yeah. So, we're certainly not the smartest people in the industry, and I know there's things we're missing and other things we can do. I gave a presentation yesterday here at Dimensions, and that's one of the things I kind of shared with the audience is I've talked to a lot of people in the industry who are like, yeah, we have an XR10, and I started asking questions. What are you doing with it? No, we haven't really found, we don't use it, but we've got one. We don't use it, and that was my ask to my audience is go start playing around with it. You've got a model, you've got a project, just just go walk the job and let other people walk it and see where it goes. I mean, that's truly where we started. We had no agenda.
Yeah.
And we started using it, and it just saw the value immediately.
Yeah. All right. I think we have time for one more story time with Jared. You have another case study.
Yeah, sure. Another water treatment plant. So we were doing a job, and this one was in northern Indiana.
Yep.
And kind of we did that typical workflow. It was a small water treatment plant that served a municipality up in northern Indiana, and we were kind of retrofitting some pumps and a filter, putting in a new filter for them. And we had to do it kind of half at a time. Half the job had to remain active.
Yep.
So there were 3 pumps total we were replacing. The 2 pumps had to remain online full time to continue serving water to the community. And so we laser scanned this plan and started routing and detailing our pipe within the point cloud data. Did that typical workflow. We got our pipe detailing done, and then went out and walked the site with our superintendent and our foreman, and also had the plant operator on site with us as well. Walked it with the XR10 and visualized it, and it's those simple catches that I always like, and those are the stories I like, because those are the ones that are the biggest headaches later that are pain to fix down the road.
And I imagine the most frustrating,
the
simple ones. Be like,
why didn't we see that? and so our contract drawings showed these valves. So we had a pump with a 90 up and a vertical run of pipe that ran up to a header that ran horizontal. Okay. So kind of picture this, piping comes off of a pump, 90's up. At the very top of that run of pipe, the vertical run of pipe, right before it hit the header, there was a valve, a butterfly valve to shut flow off and isolate that single pump.
Yep.
Our contract drawing showed that valve right under the T at the header. And this header was, probably 9 feet off the ground.
Yep. And
didn't even think twice about it when we kind of detailed our pipe and got it ready for fabrication. We follow the contract drawings, until we find a reason not to, and then we'll go through an RFI process and consult an engineer. Can we change this for this reason?
Yeah.
So we placed the valve there. On our site walk and the model review, the plant operator had the HoloLens on, was just checking out the pipe of what we were going to install. And he physically reached up and tried to grab that valve, hologram image floating valve in this model. And he couldn't reach it with his hand. And he was like, that is really inconvenient. Like, I don't want to have to go get a step stool or something. I mean, it introduces safety risks that really don't need to be there. And it's just not convenient.
Yep.
And so we were like, well, that's a simple fix. There's in our eyes as a contractor, there's no reason we couldn't take that valve in that vertical run and just take it from the high location and put it right on the 90 coming off the pump.
Yeah.
And so we consulted our engineer and they had no issues with it. We went through that process and again, simple fix, just, truly changing the location of a valve in a vertical run just because they couldn't reach it.
So, all right. So I'm going to go not off topic, but I'm going on a tangent here. Yeah. So you brought the idea of like the RFI, and again, it's been over 2 years since I've used this, so I don't know how it's progressed. Mm-hmm. But within the model, I'm wearing the XR10. Mm-hmm. Have we gotten to the point yet where you can then click, create an RFI directly within the XR10 interface?
Yes. So Trimble Connect has that capability.
Yeah.
Again, I can't speak as an expert on those workflows because our connectivity is limited, as I shared. So we're not using that capability, but I do know that capability exists. So you can, on the spot when you're on site, you're connected, you can tag something in the model and say this is an RFI and here's why, and go through and process it that way. I do know the capability exists.
Yeah. I would even think that to even streamline that, right, would be, so now, like you said, that's an RFI that's going to get routed to the engineer. Mm-hmm. And it would be great. It's almost like kind of like a doctor consultation.
Right,
like, boom, it's in this project, it would go to Sam Smith.
Yep.
And like dial Sam Smith. Be like, Sam, give me the answer now, man.
That's a great concept.
That'd be great. But again, connectivity might limit that.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're a couple of our job sites we're testing some Starlink and those capabilities. So, I mean, it's definitely improving. But we're not there yet.
Yeah, the industry it'll get there, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It'll get there.
All right, so time for our last question. So we ask every one of our guests this question. What is your motto? Not everybody has their own personal motto.
Yeah.
Or what is a motto that you've heard that you feel is like a good lesson to live by?
Yeah, so you asked me this question before, and I was like, that's a tough one. I really didn't have one, I'll be honest with you.
I'm trying to make you think.
I appreciate it. Guy named Andy Stanley is an author. I've read some of his books and like him. And something he says is it's better to make a difference than to make a point. And I just think that's true in all aspects of life, not only work related, but personal related, and relationships with your family and friends and coworkers. And I just say we all work with other people, and I think it's just better make a difference than to make a point. You're not always right.
Spot on, man.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Jared, thanks so much for joining us and
sharing
story time with Jared.
Absolutely.
This is an easy show title.
Yeah, it was fun.
And everybody listening and watching, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, stay connected.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Connected Construction Show. For more information, visit us at connectedconstructionshow.com.